Hari Om. Ajam nirvikalpam nirakaramekam niranandamanandamadvaitapurnam niranandamanandamadvaitapurnam param nirgunam nirvichesham niriham parabrahma rūpam ganesham bhajema parabrahma rūpam ganesham bhajema. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste. Welcome to session 91 of Bhagavad Gita verse by verse. Friends, today is the last day of this Plavanama Samvatsara. Plava means raft. So we are getting out of this raft tomorrow and entering the period of auspicious. Yes, tomorrow is the great festival Ugadi, and the new Samvatsara called Shubhakrit will begin. The year Vikari was a year of pervert, Sharvari was a year of darkness, and Plava was a year of transition, journey from ill health to health, darkness to light, and inauspiciousness to auspiciousness. Tomorrow, we are going to see a new light of health, new light of happiness, new moment of auspiciousness. On the eve of this new beginning, Param Vedanta wishes you all a very happy Ugadi, very happy Gudi Padava, very happy New Year. May the year Shubhakrit bring all good things to all. With this festive mood, we are commencing study of chapter 12 called Bhakti Yoga. Today, we look into the first 5 verses of chapter 12. At the end of the session, we will have the chanting of these verses. Now, before Dr. Hegde sir introduces us to the day's topic, let's look back at the Mundakopanishad verses we studied in our last class. Dr. Anupama will help us in this brief revision. Anupama, ma'am.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The topic here is Paravidya, Akshara Brahma Jnana, the liberating knowledge, the absolute truth, Brahma Satyam Jagat Nitya, Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. In response to Shaunaka's question, what is that one cause, knowing which everything is known? The teacher Angiras gives the answer as Aksharam Brahma in 3 stages. Mantra 1, the Adhyaropa stage, introduces Saguna Karana Brahma. Mantra 2 describes Nirguna Brahma, and Mantra 3, the Apavada stage, introduces ēkaranam Brahma. The Karanatvam status is like a disposable cup. Just as we consume only the coffee, experience trupti, and then dispose the cup, we introduce Karana Brahma, comparable to the disposable cup, as Adhyaropa. Remembering that this Karanam status is a compromise stand taken just to ease the understanding of ēkarana Nirguna Brahma. Let's understand Adhyaropa Apavada first. What do we see here? A pot or clay. Stage 1, the pot is presented as an effect of clay. Stage 2, clay is presented as the cause of the pot. Stage 3, we wonder, is there a pot apart from the clay? And in stage 4, we understand the effect, the pot, is non-different from the cause, the clay, and conclude that cause alone exists because it was, it is, and it ever will be. Adhyaropa Apavada leads us to Ajatavada. We understand there's no creation, no Maya, no Jagat, no Īśvara. Only pure existence, Brahman is. Swamiji describes this as a $1 billion verse from Aparoksha Anubhuti by Shankaracharya. Karyehi karanam pashyet. First introduce the karyam. Pashyat karanam visarjayet. Then negate karyam. Karanatvam tatha nashyet. Then negate karanam status. Avashishtam bhavin munihi. This temporary causal status is not a parinama cause, like milk being the cause of curd. It is a vibhakta cause, a mental projection like rope snake. Mantra 1 describes Karana Brahman as follows. Just as a blazing fire, Sudiptat Pavakat, thousands of sparks, Vispulinga, of the same nature as the fire originate. So also, From Aksharam Brahma, varieties of beings, vividha bhavaha, are born and they just resolve back into Brahman. The rule being, Karanam is the essence of all Karyam. Therefore, by knowing the one cause, Aksharam Brahma, all effects, the entire creation is known. But Karanam Brahma is only Vyavaharika Satyam, because we have split the Nishkalam, the indivisible Atma Chaitanyam, into two parts. The Karyam contained in the body Upadi as Jivatma, and the Karanam, the total Chaitanyam, as Paramatma. The body here becomes the Nimitta Karanam of Jivatma Paramatma differentiation. If we negate this body, both Jivatma and Paramatma just cease to exist, and only Atma Chaitanyam remains. Therefore, Brahman is neither the cause nor the effect. So, what is Brahman? Upanishad says, Neti Neti. Neti means na iti, and iti means the drishya prapancha, which has two components, the vyakta stula prapancha and the avyakta sukshma and karana prapancha. If this drishya prapancha is negated, what remains is the drik, the chaitanyam sakshi, Nirguna Brahma. Mantra 2 describes Nirguna Brahma as Divya, Amurta, Purusha, Sabahya Vyantara, Ajaha, Aprana Amanaha, Shubhraha, and Aksharat Parataha Paraha, meaning superior to Saguna Brahma, which is superior to creation. Mantra 3 establishes a Karanatattvam of Brahman. From Brahman, with Upadi, that is Avidya Maya as a seed, is born the universe with Nama, Rūpa, and Karma. This Bhuta Bhautika Prapancha is only a Vyavaharika Satyam and therefore Mithya. Brahman is Sarvada Nishprapancha. When creation is negated, Karanatvam of Brahman is just irrelevant. Karya Karana Vilakshana Brahma is revealed. Mantra 4 describes the creation and nature of Virat, Vishwarupa, Iśvara. From Saguna Brahman is born Hiranyagarbha, the Samashti Sukshma Sharira, and from Hiranyagarbha is born Virat, the Samashti Stula Sharira. This universe is Virat Purusha. It has heaven as the head, sun and moon as the eyes, all directions as the ears, Vedas as the speech, Vayu as prana, the universe as mind, and earth as the feet. Mantra 10 describes Advaita Brahman. Brahman is the very Adhishtanam of this universe. If Paramatma is the Karanam of Jivatma and Jagat, we have three seemingly different entities, Jiva, Jagat, and Iśvara. This mantra says, Idam Vishwam Karma Tapaha Purusha Eva. So we have to resolve this triad into one Purusha. First, we negate Jagat. Iśvara is the Karanam of Jagat, which is the Karyam. Since Karyam Jagat cannot exist without Karanam, it is Mithya. The world is now dissolved into Brahman. This is Prapanchyo Pashamam. Next, the difference between Jivatma and Paramatma is negated by dropping the body Upadi. The familiar way of saying this is Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnamevavashishyate. What remains is Advaita Atma, the Purusha. He who knows Ved, that I, Aham, am absolutely eternal, Paramritam, has destroyed Vikirati, the knot of ignorance, Avidya Granthim, created by Dehabhimana. The one who knows this Advaita Atma is liberated. This mantra reveals both Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam and its phalam. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alpama. That was a brilliant work. I will just touch on that 10th mantra. This is the 10th mantra of the 2nd chapter of the Mundakopanishad. This particular mantra is so important, and this mantra has liberation hidden in it. We have studied this, and therefore when somebody summarizes this whole set of verses and presents it in 6 minutes, it becomes difficult to understand unless we have gone through the Mundaka Upanishad. The entire Mundaka Upanishad very systematically helps us to get into liberation. And this 10th mantra, Purusha eva Vishwam karma tapo brahma paramritam yo veda nihitam so avidya grantim vikirati saumya. This is a mantra that we need to study. And to study this mantra, we need to know what is ēkarūpa apavada. So ēkarūpa apavada was nicely explained. Based on that, we understand, because these teachings are so difficult, the teacher has to create a different style of teaching. And that is how the Upanishad. Now, when we are studying the Bhagavad Gita is like the launching pad. And from the launching pad, we explore into the world of the Upanishads. And it is the Upanishadic verses which will bring us to Paramapurushartha or Mōkṣa. Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Om. This is not a blind repetition of this mantra. The greatest gift we have is the Guru Tattva in the form of our Swamiji, who has explained all this. And whatever we are sharing today is almost everything that what he has said, but from our own understanding. And I'm sure all our speakers have understood what they are speaking. And this transmission of understanding is the great process that is going on. And hopefully those who listen to these verses would be kindled to study the Gita and the Upanishad to that extent that everything that is spoken has to be something that we have understood. It should not be just words. Initially, it will be words, but if you pay attention, if you come prepared for these classes, then it becomes very meaningful. We are now beginning the 12th chapter and one of the most beautiful and the shortest chapter of the entire Bhagavad Gita, which is called Bhakti Yoga. Let us have some understanding of what Bhakti is all about. All accomplishments in the material world or in the spiritual world, in the scientific world or in the world of sports, is a product of years of exercises. And in the field of spirituality, these exercises are called sādanās. Just like a sports person has to be very consistent with his exercises, so too a spiritual seeker has to be very consistent with a certain group of exercises. What are these exercises or sādanās? A sādanā, a sadhaka. A sadhaka is a seeker like all of us. What are we seeking? We are seeking our true nature. We know that we are not just body-mind, we are something extraordinary. And through the help of Guru and Shastras, we are trying to discover our true nature, which will bring up total fulfillment. In order to bring that, our teacher says, each of us, the sadhakas, have to do regular sadhana, that is an exercise, to achieve our goal, the sadhyam, or self-realization, and become a siddha. That means we have to be established. In this field of spirituality that we are in, there are only 3 sadhanas. Thankfully, yes, there are only 3 of them. One is called karma yoga, the other is upāsana yoga, and the third is jñāna yoga. Now, where does bhakti come? Today we have another yoga. Now, bhakti is a unique combination of all the 3. In fact, when a person goes through all these sadhanas, or the other way around, each one of these sadhanas are done in a background of bhakti. Can you do karma yoga without bhakti? Can you do any form of meditation or prayer without bhakti? This experience of jñāna yogas, the studying of the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, comes along with a tremendous amount of reverence to the Gita, to the teacher. And therefore, all our efforts are done in the medium of bhakti. And that is what we need to understand. Bhakti is not a separate sadhana. It includes all the three sadhanas. It includes karma yoga, upāsana yoga, and jñāna yoga. That means any activity from today onwards, remember that my life cannot be separated into religious activity in my prayer room and secular activity when I come out. In my prayer room or outside my prayer room, every act that I do is an act of religiosity. That means an act based on reverence. Now, what is karma yoga? It is Iśvara arpana bhava or prasada bhava. Can you imagine doing any form of karma, whatever it may be, cleaning or sweeping the floor, any activity that I do, can it be done with this bhava that I'm doing it as an offering to God? You know, we have yad karoshi yadasnashi, yadyuhoshi. It doesn't matter what you do, whatever you act, do it as an arpana to me, Shri Krishna has said. Upāsana, upa and asana. Upa means near, asana is to be seated. Upa really means being close to God. Whenever we do manasa japa, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, manasa parayana, that means mentally you're chanting a series of verses. Manasa puja, mentally you're worshipping the Lord or sitting in form of meditation. All these certainly will have bhakti. And finally, as I explained, even as we are studying this Gita, we have a tremendous reverence to the Shastra. We have tremendous reverence to our teacher and reverence to each one of us around us. So that is the bhava in which we do. The more we understand God, and that has been starting from the 7th chapter onwards. From the 7th chapter, Shri Krishna says, I will give you a very clear idea of my true nature, which he says higher is para and lower is apara. Whatever you see and experience is my lower nature and higher is the experiencer. We have seen God as creator. We've seen God as Vishwa-rūpa or the creation. And now our effort is to see that the consciousness within me is the one that is giving support to existence. That means when I'm seeing the world in front of me, it is because of the consciousness in me, the world has come into existence. When I look to my left, the world on my left has become existent. When I look to my right, this whole world has become existent. Can you believe that? Mayeva sakalam jatam. Now this is the understanding that we need to give. I give existence to the world. Very simple, a well-designed product must have an intelligent being to design and create it. So God is the creator of the universe. This is in the early stages. Later on, you will say, if God has to create the world, with what did he create? He has to create out of himself itself. So the world is none other than Isha Jagadisha. It is an extension of the Lord, and therefore, even as I put my feet on the ground, I have a deep sense of reverence that it is Mother Goddess on which I'm resting on. And the third and the most difficult to understand is that I am giving existence to the world, not as body or mind, but as the conscious existence in me. The consciousness in me and the existence outside are not two, but one and the same. And as we enter into the 13th chapter, Kshetra Vibhaga Yoga, this becomes more clear. In the early stages of our understanding, God is the means, world is the goal. If I have a medical problem, I pray God, let my illness be cured, let me become fit once again. So therefore, God is the service provider, and being well, having all the good things in the world, that means the world is my goal, God is my means. But as we evolve, we realize the world is not so much worth investing on. Then my whole change goes, my whole perspective of the world undergoes a 180-degree turn. Then what happens? Every roadblock, every difficulty, every insult, every disease, every wound reminds me of God. Now God has become, the world has become the means, and in every encounter in the world, I experience God. Of course, through Guru Shastra, we come to know our true nature. I am not this ordinary body-mind complex. I am Atma Brahma. I am Atma Brahma. Aham Brahmasmi. And therefore, when God is a service provider, he is dear. When God is my goal, it is dearer. When God is none other than myself, that love is the highest form of love. So it is the gradation, is the intensity very clearly seen on this side. That means I have moved from ēkarūpa, anēka rūpa to arūpa. Once I understand all this, do I still go to my prayer room, light a lamp, prostrate before that idol, say a few verses or mantras? Certainly, yes. But now I have nothing to ask for. In that prayer room, it is only a thanksgiving and a prayer to welfare to everybody. And with the hope that, Bhagwan, you have blessed me. Can you give this blessing to everybody else? And let me see in what way I can help it. As we evolve, one of the most difficult things is to let go that which has brought you up till there. But then you have the pole vault example. The highest or the greatest detachment is to let go of all these religiosity props and then become free from even Guru and Shastra. To let go of the Guru and Shastra like the pole vault, that is how Sri Ramakrishna became Paramhamsa. Can I quickly tell you, go through all these, this wonderful slide? And in this slide, you will see Bhakti can be classified as Manda, Madhyama, or Uttama. Manda, when I see it as ēkarūpa, anēka, Uttama is arūpa. Initially, I see God as a creator. Then I see God as the creation. Then I see God or godliness in myself. God initially was paroksha, far away. I don't see you at all. Then it becomes pratyaksha. This very table is godliness. And then I declare and I understand God is not apart from me. My true nature is that it is aparoksha. Initially, God was the means, then God was the goal. Now I know God is not other than my true nature. The sadhana that we use were karma yoga, upāsana yoga, and jñāna yoga. And when I bring them all together, it is bhakti yoga. In this context, let us understand the opening question that Arjuna has to the Lord, which will be explained to us by Dr. Ambika.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Chapter 12, Bhakti Yoga is a Vedasa. It is essence of Veda. The first half of the Bhakti Yoga deals with the means of Mōkṣa, and the latter deals with the Bhakti Yoga Phalam. The Bhakti Yoga consists of Karma Yoga, Upāsana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. In next slides, we will see that this Bhakti Yoga can be is divided into 5 levels for our convenience by Bhagwan Sri Krishna. Level 1 of Karma Yoga is for all the materialistic people who are worldly people who wants to enjoy the life. So the Bhagwan says that you can be a Karma Yogi provided whatever you are doing it or whatever you are trying to achieve it, you achieve it with the dharmic ways, and whatever you get or whatever your accomplishment are, accept it as a gift from the God. As a result, if we are having this attitude of Iśvara Prasada Buddhi, our chitta will become more shuddha and shuddha, and our sakama bhavana will turn into a nishkama karma bhavana, and we entered into the level 2 of Karma Yoga. So from the level 1 where we were self-centered, when we entered into the level 2 of nishkama karma bhavana, a person has the feeling of giving back to the society. The more tyaga bhavana comes into him. But the Karma Yoga, whether it is a sakama bhavana or nishkama bhavana, it's an extrovert in a nature. The person has to be an extrovert. If we want to have a journey of a Jnana Yoga, we need to start a journey towards inward. And for this inward journey, we have to have a path of upāsana yoga. The upāsana yoga is also divided into level 1, the ēkarūpa īśvara dhyana, in which we contemplate on a particular god, our ishta. This level helps us to focus our mind to our ishta. Once we have crossed this level, we move to a anēka rūpa īśvara dhyana. We imagine the whole universe as a cosmos, as an īśvara. This will help in the expansion of a mind. After having the level 1 and level 2 of karma yoga and level 1 and level 2 of upāsana yoga, we have the yogyata, or we have the yogyata to enter into a jñāna yoga. So what is jñāna yoga? We go to a Nirguna Brahman upāsana. What is the Nirguna Brahma upāsana? In this, the Īśvara, the difference between the Jiva and Īśvara disappears. The jñāna yoga can be summarized as Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam together is called a jñāna yoga. So what is Bhakti yoga? If you want to see, it's a Vedic karma plus upāsana yoga plus jñāna yoga. If you want to imagine a Bhakti yoga, in the next slide, we can see that if we want to cross the samsara sagar, and so what it means is like if Jeev wants to have a Mōkṣa, he has to follow the bridge of Bhakti yoga, and the pillars of this Bhakti yoga are karma yoga, upāsana yoga, and jñāna yoga, and all are equally important. So from a journey of a jiva to Mōkṣa, we have to have a karma yoga, upāsana yoga, and jñāna yoga together. In the next slide, we see that after this, the Arjuna is having a doubt, that he asks, Arjuna vacha evam satata yukta ye bhaktāstvam paryupāsate ye chāpyaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vittamaha. Arjuna has a doubt that which type of upasaka or bhaktas are good. The one or the superior, the one who contemplate or do Saguna Bhakti, or the one who meditate upon the avyaktam, unmanifested Brahman. So if you see in the next slide, if you see the word by word meaning, we say bhaktastvam paryupasate. Bhaktas who meditate upon Saguna Īśvara. And how do they meditate? Satata yukta, with a constant commitment, with a constant nishtha. Evam. In this, the evam means whatever has been described in chapter 12, that is the Vishwarupa Darshana of a Bhagavan. Chapi. But there are some people who, what type of people? Who meditate upon Aksharam Avyaktam Paryupasate. Here Aksharam means Nirguna Brahman. Avyaktam which we cannot describe, agochara, which is beyond our sensory perception. Tesham, among them, among whom? The one who are Saguna Bhakta and Nirguna Bhakta. Ke yoga vittamaha, who are the best yogis. This question is being asked by Arjuna from Bhagavan Shri Krishna, and Bhagavan is going to reply in the next few verses. Hari Om, Dhanyavad.
Thank you, Dr. Ambika, for giving us not only an explanation of Arjuna's question, but also giving us an overview of what is this Bhakti Yoga. Arjuna's question comes from innocence or ignorance of not knowing the whole perspective of what Bhakti is all about. And therefore, an innocent question will be a wrong question. And so Krishna had a difficulty in understanding a wrong question. There are two different levels of bhakti that Arjuna has asked, whether I worship you in form or worship you with the formless. As you will see subsequently, it is impossible to come to that understanding of that formless nature without going through bhakti with form. But Sri Krishna, being Sri Krishna, will entertain what is called adhikari bheda. What is adhikari bheda? Among bhaktas, we have different levels, and therefore the Bhagavan has to be able to accept whatever the level of type of bhaktha. And for Bhagavan, he is able to accept everyone. And that is how, from that context, Sri Krishna will be able to answer this question. You will see Arjuna is therefore has not heard this answer to this question. This question is really irrelevant because Sri Krishna in the 7th chapter itself has said, Chatur Vija Bhajante Mam Jana Sukritorjuna. There are 4 levels of bhaktas he has told in the 7th chapter. Tesham, among them Jnani Nitya Yukta, such a person is dear to me and I am dear to him. So Jnani, so Sri Krishna has already classified the various levels of bhaktas and has told us this earlier in the 7th chapter. It's something to remind us that there are many beautiful verses on Bhakti Yoga which have come in the earlier chapter. And this particular verse, the verse 17th verse, is considered as a goalpost verse. And at some stage, we will highlight these verses which will remind us why we are studying the Bhagavad Gita, especially in our Disha classes. The answer to this question, Shri Bhagavan will answer. Padma will explain. Padma, please.
Thank you, sir. Hari Om. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The Vedantic vocabulary, Saguna means with attributes. And Saguna Dhyanam Bhaktas meditate upon the Lord with attributes. Nirguna means without attributes. And Nirguna Dhyanam Bhaktas meditate upon the Lord without attributes. Saguna Bhakti is Dvaitam and Nirguna Bhakti is Advaitam. Swami Paramarthananda ji says, Arjuna's question to Lord Krishna as to who is superior, Saguna Bhaktas or Nirguna Bhaktas, is not correct. They are incomparable. He says, Saguna Dhyanam prepares one to graduate to Nirguna Dhyanam. One is the means and the other is the end. Swamiji says, in academics, to graduate, one has to go through a cycle of preschool, primary school, high school, which prepares one to graduate at college level during one's intellectual growth from child to an adult. He means one step at a time. Likewise, Saguna Bhakti prepares one to reach Nirguna Bhakti. The Vedas say to practice Bhakti Yoga, one has to go through an entire range of sadhanas, culminating in Mōkṣa, liberation. The sadhana are Karma Yoga, Upāsana Yoga, and Jñāna Yoga to reach Bhakti Yoga to finally attain Mōkṣa by going through severe penance involving Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. The verse, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Vesha Mano Yema Nitya Yukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopetaha Te Me Yukta Tamam Ataha. Lord Krishna said, fixing the mind upon me with great faith, those ever steadfast devotees who meditate upon me are considered to be best yogis by me. In this verse, 3 qualities of a superior yogi are highlighted. First, Aveshya Manaha, fixing the mind on Īśvara. Lord Krishna says, Aveshya Manaha Mayi, devotees should fix their mind and meditate upon me. Earlier, Lord Krishna, in the 6th chapter, Dhyana Yoga and other places, has given instructions and teachings on meditation. Te upasate mama. Here he is referring to the Saguna Bhakthas who meditate upon him, the Lord, in the form of either ēkarūpa īśvara or vishvarūpa īśvara with aveshya manaha, with steadfast fixed mind. This kind of intense concentration or meditation requires mind free from malam, that is raga, dvesha, krodha, moha, etc. and vikshepaha, extrovertedness and restless mind. The second quality, nitya yuktaha, the ability to constantly remain engaged in worship without letting the mind divert itself to other pursuits. Thirdly, upeta paraya shraddhaya, endowed with supreme and unwavering faith or devotion. And what is the benefit of Saguna Dhyana? For a sadhaka, the benefit of Saguna Dhyanam is expansion of mind, purity and refinement of mind, all intangible and unquantifiable. Saguna Dhyanam chastens the mind for Nirguna Dhyana. Lord Krishna says, Mataha yukta maha. These types of yogis are considered the best or superior Saguna Bhakthas. Swami Adi Shankaracharya says, Lord Krishna does not mean Saguna Bhakthas are superior to Nirguna Bhakthas. He means amongst the yogis practicing Saguna Dhyanam, the best among them are considered superior by Lord. Saguna Bhakti is the sadhana through which one reaches Nirguna Bhakti to attain eternal communion with the Supreme Lord. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Thank you, Padma, for a nice explanation of this verse, where you not only explained each word in the verse, but also told us what is Saguna and Nirguna. Now, this is the dilemma. The dilemma for a teacher to answer the question without offending the questioner by saying, see, I have already answered this before, or this question itself is not relevant. So Krishna, in his own way, says, a Saguna Bhakta is very dear to me. A Saguna Bhakta is one who is a very simple person who's able to see the Lord with form. And if he's having all these three qualifications as mentioned in this particular verse, Paraya Shraddha, Nitya Yukta, and whose mind is resting on me. He says such a person is very dear to me. We will go to the next answer. So Shri Krishna does not exclude Nirguna also. Shiv Kumar, please.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The verse goes like this. Etvaksharam anirdeshyam avyaktam pariupāsate sarvatrāgam achintyancha kūtastham achalam dhruvam. Continuing the explanation, in this verse, the Lord uses many adjectives and significant Upanishadic words for describing Nirguna Iśvara. They are listed in the slide, next slide, but we shall approach them in a different order. From 8th chapter, we know Akshara means imperishable, absolute, ultimate reality, which is the one and only source of peace, security, and happiness. In the first line, Lord says, Yetu Aksharam Pariupāsate. There are some who meditate upon Aksharam, this absolute Paramam Nirgunam Brahma. The whole physical universe is a blend of Shabda, Sparsha, Rūpa, Rasa, Gandha. If we close our 5 sense organs, this segmented world disappears. But Nirguna Krishna Iśvara does not have any of these 5 attributes and hence not perceptible to any of our 5 sense organs. Therefore, Nirguna Krishna is Indriya Agocharam or Avyaktam. Our emotions, anger, happiness, etc. cannot be perceived by our sense organs, but mind can conceive them. The Lord says that even such a mind cannot conceive his Nirguna Rūpam, as his Rūpam, this Rūpam is Mano Agocharam or Achintyam, which is inconceivable. Now, therefore, it's not possible to sensorially perceive, mentally conceive, nor describe with words, Shabda, as Nirguna Rūpam is Anirdeshyam, indescribable. Unobjectifiable is a single word for the imperceptible, inconceivable, and indescribable Nirguna Krishna, and the technical word is Aprameya. Aprameya is an important nature. Prameya means object of knowledge. Aprameya, never being an object of knowledge, one can never know Nirguna Krishna. This gives a rise to a doubt whether such a God exists at all. To this, Lord says that Nirguna Brahma not only exists, but is sarvatragam, all pervading, is everywhere. We define form as square or rectangle, circular, etc. after seeing its boundary. But just as formless, all-pervading space cannot move from one place to another, Nirguna Īśvara, being formless and all-pervading, cannot move from place to place, nor has birth or death. Such a Lord is achalam, that which does not move. Next word is kutastham. Again, from second chapter, we note that the physical body, due to time principle or kalatattvam, undergoes sixfold modifications, namely asti, jayate, vardate, viparinimate, kshiyate, and finally vinashyati, dies. The Lord says that Nirguna Īśvara, not influenced by the time principle, is kutastha, free from shadvikara, the sixfold modifications. The word kutastha has several meanings, one being anvil, which in forging of metals provides a changeless substratum. While giving the analogy of such an anvil, Swami Paramatmanandaji says, Nirguna Krishna, the witness conscious principle, being that changeless substratum in us, remains like an anvil, while our body metal and mind metal are hammered by experiences of life, changing our body and mind. Since this Nirguna Krishna is changeless, Nirvikara, Nirguna Krishna is dhruvam, meaning changeless, eternal, permanent, without birth or death. Thus, Sarvatragam and Achalam indicates Desha Atita, that is, God is free from spatial limitation. Kutastha and Dhruvam represents Kala Atita, free from time principle. I would like to conclude by recalling Kathopanishad, where Lord Yama, addressing the same topic, beautifully explains why Brahman, Atma, cannot be objectified. He says, Brahman is not available for our fivefold sensory perception. Brahman is without birth or death and the intermediary modifications. Brahman is absolute. Brahman is free and free from time-wise limitations, is eternal. Brahman is beyond samashti, intellect, or hiranyagarbha. Friends, to reach the highest level of bhakti yoga, one has to practice nididhyasanam, for which one requires jñāna yogyata, to meditate upon the highest nature of God, or Nirguna Īśvara Dhyanam, as an integral part of jñāna yoga sadhana. The qualification of jñāna yogyata and benefits are explained in the following verses. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.
Thank you, Shiv Kumar, for a nice explanation of a really difficult verse. Now, Krishna is trying to address Arjuna's question of the two types of bhaktas, one who worships with form and the other who is formless. As you will see in the subsequent speakers will tell us, there's a real difficulty. There is a real difficulty in worshipping the formless. But is it worthwhile? Certainly worthwhile, because liberation comes by understanding Bhagwan as the formless. But what do you mean by the formless? What do you mean by aprameya? That means it is not an object. You're giving me so much of descriptions. You're saying it is something that cannot be thought about also. And yet it exists. If it is there, but it cannot be seen, it cannot be heard, it cannot be touched. If it cannot be an object of my experience, that it must be something else. And what is that? It must be the subject. Slowly and slowly, from Kshetra, we are coming to Kshetrajna. We are coming to the field of experience. So, how do we approach God? Different people have the freedom to approach God in different ways. But as we evolve from ēkarūpa to anēka rūpa, and finally come to arūpa. And that is where we'll be able to discover true liberation, true freedom. Verse 4 will be explained to us by Dr. Sandhya Ravi. Over to you, Dr. Sandhya.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Discussing the merits of devotion and contemplation in the first few verses of Bhakti Yoga, Krishna describes in this verse the qualities of the seeker, worshipping the absolute formless Brahma is the Nirguna Dhyana path, who also attains Brahman. The verse, Samniyamyendriya gramam sarvatra samabuddhaya te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhuta hite ratha. By restraining all the senses, being even-minded in all conditions, rejoicing in the welfare of all creatures, they too come to me, is what this verse says. Looking at the meanings of the words, samniyamya, we are asked to restrain the senses and not reject them completely. And what are we restraining? The group of senses, that is the indriya gramam. The wandering sense organs have to be restrained, and so also the mind. Only then is Nirguna Dhyanam or Atma Dhyanam possible. Meditating on something that cannot be objectified is very difficult. It is possible only when there is Indriya Nigraha. And we have seen in Tattva Bodha the fourfold preparatory qualifications required for a sadhaka to practice this Nirguna Ishvara Dhyanam or Nididhyasana. Of that, Dhamma is explained as Chakshuradi Bahyendra Nigraha, control of the external sense organs, and this will facilitate the process. Next is Sarvatra Samabuddhaya. Samabuddhi is being even-minded, and Sarvatra is towards all. So being even-minded towards all. We have to maintain equanimity in all situations without Ragadvesha. So getting rid of the impurities of Ragadvesha, our mind becomes purified, to become empathetic, to become compassionate. And this we see is a fundamental quality for all the later Daivi Sampat qualities, virtues that are described in chapter 16, the first 3 verses. The most significant quality mentioned in this verse is Sarvabhuta Hiterata, that is, being committed to the welfare and being of all the living beings in the universe, rejoicing in the welfare of all creatures, not just humans. So service to humanity is declared as an essential part of the discipline. In chapter 5, Sannyasa Yoga, verse 25, Krishna speaks of the stages of spiritual sadhana and mentions Labhante Brahma Nirvanam Rishya Kshina Kalmasha Chinnadvaida Yatatmana Sarvabhuta Hiterata. So Sarvabhuta Hiterata appears there also. To do good to others is not just to give them physical comforts or raise their standard of living. We have to help others to find their true nature and attain true happiness. All work is for the sake of the Supreme, Jagat Hitaya Krishnaya, the friend and benefactor of the whole world, as said in the Vishnu Purana. For us, what does it mean? While we try to serve the samsara sagara, we cannot evade our social responsibilities. All of us, like Dr. Hegde told us earlier, we have to play our part. For those of us caught in the web of samsara, dealing with the day-to-day difficulties of living and working, how can we practice the Sarvabhuta Hiterata? Being conscious of the others who are suffering, working towards the welfare of others. Swami Paramarthananda gives a simple solution. Chant one prayer, he says, and the punyam accrued from that, mentally gift it to the whole cosmos to help others who are suffering. This simple yet powerful Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, Sarve Santu Niramaya will serve this purpose. Prayer makes our mind sensitive. It invokes daya, empathy and compassion. This is a requisite for jñāna yogyata. This kind of devotee loses all sense of distinction between himself and another person. So naturally becomes even-minded towards all. And such individuals who have indriya nigraha, sammabuddhi, and who are sarvabhuta hiterata, Krishna says, will attain me. Hari Om. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sandhya, for giving us a very clear explanation of this verse, where Krishna is telling us that Nirguna Brahma upāsana or bhakti is possible. And how is it possible? By controlling your senses And by being available or being concerned about the welfare of all the people. And so, although it may be seemingly difficult, it is possible. Shri Krishna says it is possible that if you prepare your mind, you will be able to come to Nirguna Brahma, although it may be difficult, as we will see in the explanation by Dr. Rekha, who is the last speaker for today. Dr. Rekha, please.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. In verse 5, Lord Krishna openly and freely admits that Nirguna Dhyanam is extremely difficult, implying that Jnana Yoga is extremely difficult because Nirguna Dhyanam is part of Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga, as we all know, consists of 3 disciplines, and we can keep repeating this because it is so important. Shravanam, which is a consistent and systematic study of Vedantic scriptures for a length of time under the guidance of a competent acharya. Mananam, which is removal of doubts, which is so that all doubts are clarified, and it leads to conviction. Nididhyasanam, which is Nirguna Dhyanam or Vedantic meditation, which is assimilation of the teaching so that intellectual knowledge becomes emotional strength. In the next slide, we address the question, why is Jnana Yoga difficult? In general, according to our Swami Paramarthananda, the biggest problem is that the Lord I want to worship in Jnana Yoga is unobjectifiable because it is in the form of me, myself, the very subject. In contrast, it's very easy to worship an external Saguna object. The second problem is that it requires superior qualifications such as Viveka, Vairagya, Mumukshutvam, Shatka Sampati, and therefore it appears to be difficult. In truth, the question we need to ask is, for whom is it difficult? And Swami Paramarthananda tells us that it is difficult only for the unprepared student. In the next slide, we see how Lord Krishna presents Bhakti Yoga in 5 levels in this chapter. Now, the final 5th and highest level is Jnana Yoga, which is right on top at number 5, where the Lord worshipped by me is Nirguna Brahma. And the worship is the very inquiry itself, and it's seen in the verses 3, 4, and 5. Jnanam is essential for Mōkṣa. There is no alternative path because ignorance can only be removed by knowledge. The 4 lower steps, they represent the sadhana chatushtaya sampati, which is covered later. So we now come to this particular verse in the next slide. Klesho dikaraste sham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkham dehavat bhiravapyate. Coming to the word meanings in the next slide. Klesha adhikatara. Difficulties or obstacles are innumerable. They abound for those people who are committed to the formless God. Avyakta sakta chetasam. Avyakta, we know, is the invisible formless principle. Asakta, the committed, chetasa, minds. So we reiterate that Nirguna Iśvara Dhyanam is intensely difficult. And the Kathopanishad even uses this line, Kshurasya dhara nishita duratyaya durgam patastat kavayo vadanti. It is as difficult as walking on a razor's edge. Continuing. Avyakta gatihi dukkham. The destination of the formless one, avyakta gatihi, is indeed difficult to reach, dukkham, because for the majority, deha vad bihi, the obstacle is deha abhimana, or strong attachment to one's own physical body. This strong individuality limits and localizes oneself. And such people cannot imagine the unlocalized and formless and cannot transform themselves. Next slide, please. So we understand that transformation is transcending the form. The stronger the bodily attachment, the more difficult is Jnana Yoga. We must remember always that Jnana Yoga alone gives Jnanam. Jnanam alone removes ignorance, and removal of ignorance alone gives Mōkṣa. So there are no shortcuts. Swami Paramarthananda tells us we can make Jnana Yoga easy by preparing ourselves by getting Jnana Yogita Prapti through Karma Yoga and Upāsana Yoga. So the formula is purify, come to Jnana Yoga, know, attain Jnanam, and be free. That is attain Mōkṣa or Jivan Mukti, which is our goal. So because Jnana Yoga is difficult for an unprepared student, should I take up an easier route or some alternative path in my quest for Mōkṣa? This is too difficult for me, I can't handle this. Lord Krishna says no. Jnana Yoga is absolutely essential for Mōkṣa and nothing else works. The preparation for Jnana Yoga is given in a stepwise manner, step 1 to step 4. And this comes in the subsequent shlokas. Different people may find the lower levels easier to do or more suitable. And Lord Krishna says that is also fine. It's quite all right because we have enough time and more, either in this birth or in subsequent births, to prepare ourselves and climb the steps to reach the highest step of Jnana Yoga. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Rekha, for giving us a nice explanation of this particular verse where Shri Krishna declares it is difficult. It is dukkham. Shri Krishna also says in the 9th chapter, susukam. He says it is very easy. That means for a prepared person, it can be easy. And for an unprepared person, it is difficult. And that is why we know that we are working for one of the highest accomplishments ever. And therefore, if our goal is very clear that we are working for something highest, why not prepare for it? If a person is working for an Olympic goal, you know the amount of effort to be done. And this accomplishment is certainly far greater than any other worldly accomplishment. So those of us who are in this path, let us make this commitment that I will put in whatever sadhanas required. I will study the fundamentals like Tattva-bodha, get this understanding very clear. So with the combination of a mental preparation with certain amount of sadhanas, I am here to discover through Guru Shastra my true nature. With that, we come to the end of this class. Our next class will be, so we are going to intersperse our Disha classes, which is discovery of inner strength and happiness through the Gita. And our next class will be some of the most important verses of the Bhagavad Gita, where Sri Krishna begins his teaching. This particular section, the Disha classes will go very slow because wherever the verses are very profound, we will go into a little more detail. We will also like to dwell on the topic of Atma from the Tattva-bodha. So it is through this combination that we will have a firm foundation of the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads. Vijeta will chant these 5 verses for us, and let us now listen to them with far greater meaning because of the nice explanation that we have heard from all our teachers. Vijeta, please.
Thank you, sir. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Atha dvadashodhyayah bhakti yogaha Arjuna uvacha evam satata yuktaye bhaktastvam paryupasate echapyaksharam avyaktam teshanke yoga vittamaha. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Maya Veshya Mano Ye Mam Nitya Yukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopetaha Te Me Yukta Tamamataha Ye Tvaksharamanirdeshyam Avyaktam paryupasate sarvatra gamachintyancha kutasthamachalam dhruvam sanniyam endriyam gramam sarvatra samabuddhayah te prapnuvanti mameva सर्वभूतहिते रताः क्लेशोऽधिकतरस्तेषाम् अव्यक्तासक्तचेतसाम् अव्यक्ता हि गतिर्दुःखम् देहवद्भिरवाप्यते। हरिः ओम् श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम्।
Thank you, Vijeta, for a soulful chanting. Thank you, Dr. Hegde sir, for all the teachers of the day, for an interesting session. Thank you, friends, for your sincere participation. Next week, on Friday, 8th April 2022, let us take up new few set of verses. On Monday, 4th April, let us log in for Disha 3 at 6:45 p.m. Until then, Jai Shri Krishna. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om.